Oh, no, I hear.
Hey, we return to a galaxy far, far away as we go back to the beginnings of the Rebel Alliance with Cassian Andor and his group of scrappy pups. Space Nazis must die as we jump into the season 2 premiere of Andor. Hey everyone,
Alright.
D here, and welcome to our big review and new intro as we dive into season 2 of Andor. And joining me, as always, my buddy who's here for all of the good infos from Smirking Gun Reviews. It's Rob Stone.
Hey, yes, we are back talking another thing, another Star Wars thing, a return of a Star Wars thing. And oh boy, man, it is so good to be back talking about something that's an intellectual property that is quality. And I am so excited to talk about it.
Yeah, no. It's again, as I had mentioned before, the first season of Andor wasn't even on my radar with all the things that were coming up at the time. I was so much more excited with things like Secret Invasion, and I think we had some Obi-Wan Kenobis going on at the time too. So Andor was such an incredibly pleasant surprise, and diving back into the first of there's 12 episodes this season. They are set into 3-episode arcs, each releasing per week, and each one taking over a year or a slice of time within a year, building up to Rogue One. So this 3 episodes take up are in 4 BBY, or 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, which is, of course, A New Hope, and that is the central beginning point timeline for the Star Wars universe. So, yeah, we take up 4 BBY this year. And I have to say, just right off the bat, the beauty and cinematography and lighting and using actual sets, honestly, I was just thunderstruck throughout the whole first episode. Even the TIE sequence that we'll get to was so incredibly beautiful. And I know that they do, space battles very well. And I know we've seen some great stuff in Mandalorian, but there is just something with the way they have put this together production wise that is like, this is what, in my mind, Star Wars is. Even if you change the tone, this look, I think is really just top notch.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right from jump. We were talking about this last night while we were doing a little live watch party, and aesthetically, everything looks the way. I don't know. It's the vibe. It's it's futuristic, but not quite. There's all kinds of influences
Right.
in this. I brought up that I love that, like, it still looks like the 70s style, like Logan's Run kind of thing, where I don't want it to look necessarily so polished. I like seeing things just kind of look the way that they look in our world, but off. Everything's off, but
Well, then I
futuristic,
think
but also simplistic at the same time.
right.
And the costumes, everything just says we're not in your world anymore, but there's still a lot of familiarity so that you don't feel too disconnected, and you don't feel like, for people that might, I don't know, be afraid of a show like this because it's like maybe too complicated for them, or it doesn't, maybe not as grounded in our like what we're comfortable with. But it's just with the way that Gilroy and company have put this together, you don't even care. I just feel like I'm finally watching like Star Wars, and I was talking about this to my sister, where we were watching a recap of season 1 before she started watching season 2, and I'm sitting there watching this recap, and I just felt like, God, like at essence, this is really to me like what Star Wars should be. Doesn't always have to be this way. They can, but like everything, if we're always going to stick with the rebellion, if we're always going to be stuck in like a certain time period,
Mm-hmm.
this is the show. This is the kind of thing that I want. This is the way I want it to look. This is the way I want it to feel. Get rid of the Jedi. Get rid of the Sith. And just make it about people rebelling against the Empire. And what that really looks like, what that really feels like. We've had all these grand, epic adventure movies for the past 40 plus years, but we've never really dealt with what it's really like to be a rebel. We're always dealing with the main characters instead of the people behind the scenes that we hear stories about, like the Battle of Yavin and this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
None of those people that we've ever really watched have been a part of those things. Not even, like Darth is there, but like behind the scenes. And in this show and in Rogue One, we got to see what those people were doing.
Well, and I
And
think that they did a great job with their opener of including this now turncoat empire was helping Cassian steal this beautiful TIE Avenger.
yeah, it was
From
pretty cool.
Seinar Systems, who makes the TIE fighters. Again, just cool little like nerd drops that make me go like, woo! They named that. They reference this thing. They're, but they do it so well. But again, even that intro is with this girl, this tech who is scared and nervous and trying to do the right thing, and he is the one connection that has to reassure her and pull her over and let her know that she's making the right decision. I mean, I love the line when he's like, you already made the choice. You knew a long time ago that the Empire couldn't win. Now you're just stepping into this new world. This dude, he's charismatic and he's reassuring and he is human. And yes, God, we are not seeing a Jedi in sight. And this is from a lifelong Luke Skywalker fan. Jedis are the most awesome thing, lightsabers, all that. I am so glad we're not seeing any of it here. Because you're right. This is the story of the people, the cogs in the machine that make it go, that see the changes, that are part of those small little moments in there. And yeah, as Rena's mentioning, I love the fully formed single-use characters. Everybody feels real. Everything is grounded and human. And I think that is one thing that this does very well. I mean, look, this show's already 99% on the tomato meter right now. And not to just be like, oh, people like the opening. Disney dropped the entire series for all the reviewers. They were that confident with what they were bringing. So, I mean, as a hint of like what's to come, they drop a lot of them here. But yeah, and I think that works well with the aesthetic that you're talking about, that kind of slightly 70s and kind of now, but it's Star Wars works off of non-existent technology, stuff that doesn't exist, isn't like ours. You can have a droid that has full consciousness, and yet their holograms are all like shaky little things that are out. It's all apocryphal. But these small things, the fact that they're using a bowl and a spoon,
Yeah.
that makes it right, that there's scuff on the tabletops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we can like have breakfast like normal people, walk out our door and suddenly be halfway across the galaxy in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, somebody like goes out, gets in their thing, and goes, "Okay, off planet, gone, and we're somewhere else." And it's like, whoa. But I really liked, you bring in, like, I don't know, like we were gonna do this kind of off of like what the each character's story is, but I did want to bring up, like, right from jump, how
Yeah.
important that first scene really is, and not where he goes after the tries to get into the TIE fighter. That first scene with him talking to her, and how important it is right now for a scene like that to start the show
Yes.
is
Yes.
for people out there that really are struggling and feeling untethered and not knowing what to do. And this show is from jump, like throwing a lot of wisdom at us about fears that we have, and standing up for ourselves and standing up for our society and standing up for what's right and fighting what's wrong, and knowing that it's fine to be scared. Of course it's scary, it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the hard thing is standing up for it, standing up to it and fighting it. I was a little nervous for this character because in people that come across Andor and Luthen don't always last when they know too much.
Right.
But this was not that. It was, I have to reassure. This is about reassuring people to, you can't have a rebellion if you just kill everybody that tries to, like, you know, you have to have more of them, and we have to have people like hearing these messages. All people hear nowadays still is horribleness, and why, and how almost impossible it is to do anything. Just keep sitting here watching TV, watching, playing, doing whatever, and not fighting back.
Yeah.
And in one scene, they conveyed a lot of things that a lot of people need to hear right now. And like, that's why I put time to rebel. It's time to rebel. It's time to start causing some fucking chaos.
Well, and they do a great job. They
Sorry.
even, as we move on to later ones a little bit, which we'll talk about with the Imperial bit, they are not shying away from making a very accurate commentary on these systems that are used now, similar to the systems that the Empire used to try and get things done. And we'll jump into that in a minute. But I did like, I mean, I was a big fan of have showing that humanistic connection in with the rebellion, because that's what this series is about. It is the birth of the rebellion, and we see these through all the stages. We're doing a big thing here. We're stealing an experimental fighter. That's a huge bit, and you can get some comedy and some humanness out of that. Oh, and the flight systems are completely unfamiliar. It's entirely different than what we thought that they were going to be. You have to have a great pilot that can figure it out on the fly. And they just did a beautiful scene in the whole hangar bit with that whole escape. But even when we get to the planet with Porco and the other groups, we'll loosely call them, we find out that these were actually part of the rebellion as well, but we're in such an early stage that there's no chain of command. There's no organization. There's no real knowledge of who is with who and call signs and things like that. So it's just a bunch of yahoos causing a mess who will ultimately try and figure things out doing a space version of rock, paper, scissors, which I did appreciate. And while I think that whole sequence is actually probably the weakest part of the whole little chunk of stories, I thought it went on just way too long and was. I did have to appreciate of just showing us, this is the early stages of the rebellion. This is the beginning of stuff. We have like a few disparate pieces spread out everywhere, and we've got to try and figure some way to cobble them together. Which, as the show later implies, we will eventually get to what that event will be. But yeah, anything with the whole Cassian Andor, the whole escape thing, or what we have and what actually ends up being Yavin 4.
I
Like, you
I
cared about
the
that.
TIE fighter thing was I mean it's easy. It'd be easy to just okay, he gets in, he a little confused and then just takes off. Adventure starts. But even it's about how it's not just about those people on that planet. It's about like how anything can go wrong. You get a bad like the information was not right there. I mean, they get like Luthen has got good information, but in the end, the information still wasn't accurate and right. And that girl that gave him the information didn't know that he wouldn't know. And we get what's really it's a really funny scene, but it's still done like Andor's still competent. He's not like whoa, like playing it for laughs. I mean, this is a serious situation that does have a comedic beat to it because he's
Yes.
gonna kill some stormtroopers, he's gonna kill some Nazis, and we guess what? You can do whatever you want to those guys. So boom, 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 boom. However he got out of there, however kind of funny it was watching him have to figure out how to pilot this thing barely, and then get down to the planet where he's just like, thank God I'm here. I could just pass the baton to the next guy and run into these people that exactly what you're saying. I mean, imagine the beginning of the American Revolution, right? With militias
Yes.
running around out there, just a bunch of untrained people who are brave enough to stand up for things, but don't have any, there's no leadership. They're kind of cannon fodder, really. Um, they're out there doing their best, and when things go wrong, what do people do? What do we do like maybe not you and me,
Sure, but we as
but like
a
as a
species.
whole, like when you get a bunch of people like that together, they're going to end up fighting each other. Like just trying to decide who's in charge. Like that's important right now. What's important is getting fed, feeding yourselves, dehydrating, trying to figure out how to get out of there, exploring, but instead they're fighting amongst themselves because that's what people do when they're hungry, tired, scared. It's all really believable, even if it's a little hyper, like just a little pretty exaggerated. A lot of that, I mean, I don't know who any of those actors were, so for a lot of them, it's probably their big shot. So there's a little Shatnering going on out there,
Sure.
but it was still fun and funny and playing a lot of the old tropes of like, he's being guarded, so he has to try to figure out how to get the guard to like drop his, it's things we've seen before. They're using some old stuff, but like done in a way that is believable. And again, I used to talk shit about a lot of cliches and then once I realized when I've seen people behaving in the last couple of years, I go, no, I guess it really is more believable than I thought. But
Yes,
yeah, that whole
that
situation,
is
I
true.
kind of wanted if more like I wanted a bigger attack from like a creature rather than just some thing that barrels through really fast. I thought that would have been an interesting way for them to come together is to have to fight a common enemy. But still, it was also I wanted Andor off that planet so bad. And
Yeah,
I'm
like
glad that it happened earlier. I thought it was going to happen later, but they did get him off faster than I expected. Um, and so that was all really good. And you're right, it is kind of the weakest part of the story, but only I think because it really was a bit, the acting was a little bit over the top in that scene. In a show that's got pretty serious acting going on,
right.
it was a little more like, okay, these local yokels are just, whatever.
Hmm.
Rena says Andor out of most of the night allowing the women's stories to cook. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to step away so the other stories could sort of pick up. And let's actually jump into um Mon Mothma's story there.
Yeah.
Um which was again kind of the consequences part. I mean, in many ways, we're seeing a lot of consequences. We see that with Bix later on as well. But for Mothma, this is kind of the collection point of all of those things. She's at the wedding of her daughter which she has basically sold off to a crime lord or a, shady individual, an international shipping magnate or interplanetary shipping whatever his technical...
A thug.
A thug. Thank you. You use a lot of big words there. A thug. Space thug.
That's how she put it in the first season, right? He's a thug.
Yeah. As a way, but that was the way that she was able to get her finances covered and keep her eye, keep the Empire's eye away from her. So not only has that come to this particular fruition, but at the same time, her confidant that in a way set this whole thing up, who she brought in to help get that, is now suffering his own financial consequences and relationship consequences of those choices, and is becoming a liability. And in one just horrific wedding night, these all clash in. Rena mentioned something here in the opening here about a bit meandering. And I am glad, I was curious about the 3-episode drops, and I'm actually glad they did, because it did remind me that in Andor season 1, those first 3 episodes, the pacing was weird. But they dropped the 3 episodes at a time, and it was just like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense, so we can jump right in, and we get this whole kind of feel. I got a similar feel to this. But it really works in this bit because it's such a slow burn. You're really seeing each of those painful steps and cascades as Mothma just starts to collapse with the reality of the world that she is now in and what that's going to cost. And we had Luthen's great speech last season. What do I sacrifice? Everything! And yeah, I know. Skarsgård is so good. And he's in that same thing as, he's playing around, but he's also this just like viper in the background that the minute that he hears what's going on, we all know from the moment that he gives that hint that he's going to be gone, and he has to be gone. And we get to see Mothma sit in that whole thing. And I love what was Luthen's line. How nice for you to not see that. To not realize, like, the choices that have to be made now. How nice for you. But it does dawn on her. Anyway, a brilliant whole sequence of series, again, of just seeing that cascading, a world of Mon Mothma collapsing around her with the cost of what it's going to need to do this fight. So what did you think of all of these bits?
First I'm gonna go like right to how I am about story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why this? I don't think it I think this is great. I think this is great story structure. I guess this was told great because every plot line really centers around, like right in the middle, is Andor's mission.
Right.
Andor's at the center of it all, and how everything, I was talking about this earlier, how everything is happening around it. So you've got Andor at the center, you've got Bix and Brasso, and them waiting for him. It's very important that he show up. Without him, they're in trouble. So them not knowing where he is, that impacts their story. Then you've got Luthen at the wedding, can't communicate. And he's only thinking about the mission. Where is he? I can't figure this out, but I've got to be here to keep establishing my, who I am and keep, everybody's eyes off of me. And so Mon Mothma is kind of wrapped up in that because financially, she's the one helping pay for all these things. So that it's her interest in his mission, boom, connected to that. And then you have the Dedra and her dude, I can't remember his name, Mr. Cyril. Their part of the story is important because of what happened in the first season. Like, they're setting up all this stuff because of Andor. And I've complained about this about Daredevil, right? Because of the character of Heather being like so easily moved around. just willy-nilly. But you can't do, this is how you do that right. When your character that's at the center of it can't just be moved around because he's stuck. And the consequences of that balloon out in the right way of writing something.
Right.
So right up front, I just wanted to say that. Then in
No,
this, because
yeah.
go ahead.
I don't know. I was just going to say, no, you're right on, because even while that Yavin 4 section is kind of an annoying delay, in a way it is the annoying delay to everybody else's story, and you're right, is central for all of those
Well,
kind of little explosions happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, because Porco, who we don't even see, that's an important part because he's sitting there waiting for Andor too, except off screen, those local Yahoos screwed everything up. So, like it all is structured so amazingly. And the way that they keep cutting in and around it, the tension is like switching back and forth. And I was telling Bill last night as we were watching it, it must be amazing to watch this after the fact because you film all your scenes and you don't see how they're going to be edited together to connect all your stories so that the tension is rising or upping and down, up and down as you're watching the different scenes. Because who would have thought, like, we get Mon Mothma in one scene in Return of the Jedi, right?
Oh, I know.
Who would have thought that, like, all of a sudden she'd show up in like the Clone Wars and we'd be like, oh my God, this character is back. But we never thought we'd have a show that would be following this person.
That I would ever
be
care about this person.
Yeah.
No,
So,
and I'm sorry, I just want to jump in. You hit a great point right there when you're talking about the rise and fall between each scene as it's edited together. And that is some of the director quality that is lacking in a lot of the other shows that do not understand as you shoot and put this together that this is an emotional story that we are telling. All of cinema, all of television is an emotional story that we are telling. And if you can't stitch those rise and falls together in a right way, it just looks like slop and it does not commit that emotional feel that you want. And you feel that you are lacking things, that things don't mesh together. It takes a very good eye to be able to see this, to shoot it this way, and then to make sure that it's edited together. And that's the difference between a good director and a bad director, and why it's important to have these types of eyes when you're telling these larger stories.
Yeah, because I mean, if this was just if this whole episode, let's say, was just about Mon Mothma and the wedding, I would give it to anybody who was like, well, it's if you watch that without anything else, it would be kind of like, well, it's interesting character work, but really just kind of dull. Because yeah, it's regular stuff. People have weddings. People like this is very, but this is very Game of Thrones, like you said. She gave, she sold her daughter out. I mean, I feel like her daughter still had a choice. It was like
Sure.
they met, they made introductions, they created the situation for them to feel things for each other possibly, and then it worked out that way. We had this grand wedding, which one of the things I love about this is about this story is them showing the elite, the 1% of the galaxy, kind of these kind of people that can have a statue of their history brought in and given at a wedding. And I don't mean to be like indie right now, but that should be in a museum, not in somebody's fucking house.
Yeah, that's like 25,000 years old, the lost thing, and thought it looked nice on your entryway, in your foyer.
Yeah. But we see them and we get to see how their disconnect to the world is, while some of them are very connected to this world. And her dealing with her husband's still problems, him thinking, because of her secrets that she's fooling around on him and he's maybe fooling around on her, and she doesn't even dignify giving him an answer to whether or not she's with that guy, because to her this is just silly nonsense. Like, you can think whatever you want, but your own problems are causing your attitude.
Yeah.
And she's got way more important things than whether or not her husband thinks she's sleeping around on him. And I love that Luthen is so he's putting on the performance, but he is so miserable. He hates not having information. I completely can relate to that. I hate knowing when the answers that I need are right over there, but I got to be somewhere else, and I don't get that. Oh, it drives me up the freaking wall. Um, his assistant, who's really not happy about being there, like, and then you get old dude who brings up his finances. And yeah, you're right. Like immediately, as soon as he said, I've this is starting to affect me a bit too much," and her not quite getting there yet. We're all like, I think most of the audience went there immediately, but she's
Yeah.
still that kind of. She hasn't experienced that kind of. Oh no, this guy, like what was built, like what seemed like the foundation seemed like a great idea. And it really did seem like a great idea, but then life happens. Things that you can't see coming, like his relationship falling apart, and that causing mental distress and making poor decisions and drinking more, and which is going to make things even worse, make you even a greater liability. Who knows what you're going to say and who you're
Oh
going to say
yeah.
it to. It made me think of Goodfellas, like one of those guys who just shoots their mouth off and ends up in the back of an ice truck, just. And Luthen eyeballing this guy at dinner, just focused on what he knows he's got to do. And when you see him getting into the ship with Cinta shows up, and you go, "Oh,
Oh, it's over.
it's over."
It's
That's why
done.
I tried to put all those gifs at the end of the night last night on the Discord of like, this was Andor, basically, and two of them were, he dead.
Yeah. Oh no. I
He gonna
remember seeing
die.
that. Oh yes. No, it was perfect.
Um, but her getting like back to their little antiquity store, and just waiting for that information to come through from Andor. And when it finally comes, and her telling him, like, and I'm not skipping ahead, but like, you can't go home. All this stuff has been happening. Nobody still knows how to, like, what's going to happen. Where's he going to go? So even though she got contact with him, he's now gone again. And she can't even tell Luthen yet. She has to sit on this information because she can't just go back.
Right.
And the whole rave thing, where it just like it wasn't a rave. They slowed it down. The music was do 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 do.
Yeah.
But I love that it was Mon Mothma's only way to ignore the reality of what's about to happen. So she just gives in to the party and the wave, and being the rich elite, mother at a wedding, because to think anything else, she would fall apart in front of everyone.
Well, it's like she tells her daughter, my mom was drunk at my wedding. Only now do I realize why.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And I think what she is dealing with, again, you're talking about that central pillar of Andor and the mission and everything of falling out, but it is the shit happens that's out of your control type kind of thing. Because for her, yes, she has made all of these moves and she's done all these positions, but now those consequences are out of her control. She can do nothing to stop them or impede them or arrest them. She just has to do it. That whole speech with her daughter, when she's just like, we can go right now if you want. And her daughter's like, as you said, her daughter made the choice. She loves the kid. That whole opportunity wouldn't have been set up if Mon wasn't in that, but she already made her choice. And now the consequences, she can't stop it. Kid's going to go marry. Oh, and now Ty is flying off and Luthen's looking like going, yeah, this has to happen. And now he's going to die and she knows it. And there's nothing she can do to stop it. that whole consequence coming around. And yeah, it's why I love that kind of wild abandon of the drunkard of like, I just have to release and party and dance, and it's the only resistance I have to this chaotic, out of control world that I have to negotiate.
Yeah, it's again like the girl at the first scene needing to be encouraged and understand this is we are in this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, I think, Mon Mothma's real realization. You know, she's been trying to get money and trying to get things off the ground, but now it's off the ground and things are going. It is happening. And, you know, she didn't think that like one of the first casualties of all this beginning would be people that aren't bad,
Right.
but are just, it's a dark part of war that innocent people are gonna die. And I don't mean just from, you know, collateral damage, but from just getting what has to happen.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, if you see the wrong thing at the wrong time, if you say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and it's cold as hell to say, but it's just a reality of if you really want to fight for what's right, unfortunately, and I'm sorry if I live in the gray area about this, and and is that people like him are gonna have to go. Like, it's a terrible. Like, does he really have to? Could they just take him somewhere and like keep him tied up for a couple of years? I don't know. Sure, I guess, but
In the reality and the stakes of this world, no. Because, like you said, he could get drunk, black out, and spill it all and not even remember it or know that he did it. And that's just what it is, because he has given that kind of expense up. You can't pay him enough, because it will only enable that once they've started in that direction. You know, his speech is talking about, well, people like me, we got to find a way to get a win in here. And yeah, like in a mob, it's like, oh, looks like he could turn state's witness. We're gonna have to take him down to the train station. You know what I mean?
yeah. And I mean, what will be the fallout from this? How will this affect the foundation? How will this affect the money flowing in?
Right.
He's the guy that was part of that. So now they've got to, it's not an easy decision to take this guy out, but it's the only decision.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is, again, it's just, especially with Luthen, is there's no way you can take a risk like that. Everything else you can adjust to.
Yeah.
But you can't take that risk. And again, it's part of that out of controlness, Andor's late and it's out of his control. Mon Mothma is seeing the effects on those people closest to her for her choices, and it's out of her control. Dedra, well, she's stuck in a meeting that's out of her control, with a great scene from Portagaz even afterwards confirming, like, well, we're in the system. This is what we do, what we want.
I love this stuff.
And this, honestly, I would watch a whole episode of Imperial meetings on systems and logistics, because this is kind of the cool, meaty stuff you could do in TV, where you can play with all right, we need to take care of this world. Let's have a meeting together and have that. They've got the great kind of 50s style planetary advertisement that I love.
Oh yeah.
You've
propaganda.
You've got the PR guys that sound right out of Fox News.
Oh yeah.
Which is just, what about these guys and what are they doing? And they're, they don't support our things. And just, you can feel that whole manufacturedness to it. And of course, we've got Kremen back. Freaking just, this is
Mendelsohn.
I know, man. I'm so happy to see Ben Mendelsohn back.
And not in Skrull makeup or
yes. And not dead yet.
Yeah, not dead yet. Yeah.
But
I
yeah, I
mean,
think that
when he
this is
goes, it's good. You know, he needed to go, but
oh, sure. But this is a perfect way, again, to bring in, we're moving towards Rogue One. We bring in characters, we're making those connections. I was halfway through the scene. I loved the Tarkin reference. And part of me is like, man, do I want them to recast Tarkin? Because there's so much story to play. And then I'm like, no, man, because Peter Cushing was Tarkin, and anything that you're just doing is going to be a cheap imitation from that. You could do it in animation.
I
Everybody is different in
I
animation.
never cared about that scene in Rogue One where it was a clear, you know, it was an animated car. I didn't care. Did not care one damn bit.
Yeah. But
But
it's
this whole thing, this whole scene, yes, it's just fantastic, and just the way that they present this story about the spiders, and I'm like, where are they going with this, right? And then it's like, it's not even about the spiders, man. It's just that's just the window dressing to get what they really want,
they got
right?
a rock.
Yeah, and it's just, and it's gonna like crack the planet open, and probably gonna have to like, and they talk about, oh yeah, relocation. Yeah, right, relocation, right. They're all those people are done. Like it's like having it's watching somebody discuss how they just are going to use up a planet and poof, and like it's yeah with the numbers. Let's test that out. Let's game this. Let's think about how we're going to destroy an entire planet so that we can have all these things, and the gleefulness
Energy
that they talk about it, and the
independence.
energy in the room of like, this is just great, you know, like. And Mendelsohn doesn't come off with his usual menace in this.
Right.
He is in his element. The rebellion hasn't caused him a billion problems yet. They're still just working on the emperor's ideas, or some of their own ideas that the emperor probably thinks is great because he's got a bunch of, you know, sycophantic fascists working for him. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, and plus you got, you know, the guy from Game of Thrones still, that's absolutely fantastic, as their the her old boss, who like,
Yeah,
when he talks to her
Pendergast.
about the demotion promotion, like, I'm gonna have to fuck you over, and it's gonna look good, but and you're gonna be humiliated, and it's gonna hurt, and you're gonna be pissed, but no one's gonna know, because what you really want, what any of these Imperials want, is more power, getting closer and closer to the Emperor, even though you really don't want to be close to that guy, anywhere
Yeah,
near him. You want to be adjacent, adjacent, adjacent. You want to be far enough away, but still, like, you don't want him to know your name.
that's right.
You
That's
want him to
right.
know maybe like your project name or whatever you're under, or something like that. You don't want him knowing your name. But
Like
like,
a good renter, you want the landlord to completely forget about you. All your shit's
exactly.
taken care of. You get no attention, and yeah,
Yeah. Like, if I was Imperial, I'd just be like, I want to make sure that my job is perfect so that no one checks me ever.
yeah.
And then maybe I can ride it out. I don't know. But like, telling her, yeah, like, this is actually the best thing for you. Stop fighting it. Like, don't, I can see you struggling even right now, but you're fine. You are good. You are exactly where you need to be. And then finding out that he specifically asked for her.
Mm-hmm.
And this
That
is
was
just like
beautiful.
the big stuff. But then when we get to see that their private life, that she's with dude,
They made
clearly
such a
the
great
wife,
odd couple.
clearly the wife in that relationship, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That is
So no.
fine. I don't
Yeah.
care.
No
I'd probably
shame.
be the
No
wife in a
shame.
relationship anyway, myself. But like, this scene, oh boy, have I been waiting for this scene.
Well, let me do the precursor on that with Cyril back at his regular job now. Is what is it, standards and ways or whatever like that is. And he's like, obviously now he's in a more position of power, and he's given that whole story to the new nebbish nerd there. of how he was able to spend his own time and he uncovered this whole thing. It ends up, what was it? It's like, there's a place for you. There's a place here in Standards and Ways for those who dare. like like this is the freaking army, man. You're joining the special forces and you're in Standards and Ways. Just perfect Cyril right there. That's him in his element, and then he has to go home and deal with, yes, this. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, he's somebody. He looks for, because when he comes home, yeah, he's got, like, his life is great until we find out, like, they have this thing they got to do. And for some reason, it just didn't occur to me that it was the mother-in-law coming over.
I guessed
I
it
thought it was going to
almost
be,
immediately. Yeah.
because I was like, man, I was telling Bill, I was like, man, watch it. I would love for it to just be Darth Vader at the door. I'm here, like, I'm here for dinner,
I brought a nice bottle of wine.
But
do you like red?
But then the reveal is his mother-in-law, and I went, I still think Darth being at the door is better. Because this lady, wow. She is, wow. She is something else. And then something else happens, and this could have been played where he could be like, why'd you have to do that? Why did you like does she think less of me or whatever? It's just like, no, she just sat there, saw her guy struggling for no reason, just that he's been indoctrinated to feel like shit about himself his whole life. Another thing I can relate to about relatives, making you feel like lousy about yourself.
Yep.
And I wish somebody would have done that for me.
Oh, it was so satisfying.
Because the way she just dressed her down, and she couldn't look up. She couldn't look her in the eye. She was like how you talk to it, like when you talk to your dog when he's been in the garbage. And she doesn't raise her voice. She just lets, and she can't even. And it is over. She wipes it out. But also, I mean, she also gives her the silver lining of like, I'm going to make sure that he does all these things.
Oh, I know.
He's going to be in your life. But if you step out of line, it's over.
I love how she puts it. And that will be inversely proportional to the way that Cyril feels when he comes to visit you. It's like perfect thing. The more you make him feel bad, the less you're going to see of him. You want to make him feel great? Then you'll see him more. And just whips her down.
And he's just in the bed like... I would have expected to see him in a fetal position, but somehow just that awkward laying down of like, that can't be comfortable. Just...
Well, it is. It looks like he just went up and just kind of collapsed into whatever position his body hit the thing in, And
I'm like, these are Imperials. But they also make them people.
Yes.
Which is important. That I might not be rooting for these people, but you can see like why Cyril is the way he is. He had to find something to focus on in his life. And so he became really dedicated and good at his job. Whether or not, and by then kind of osmosis, I guess, like some people do, is like they're around something long enough, they believe in it, whether it's good or not. He's trying to be the best he can at his job. Another thing I can relate to. A lot of people can relate to that. But it's also, again, whether or not we're on their side or not. Nobody should have to deal with a mother-in-law or a mother like that.
I mean, yeah, it makes him sympathetic, but it's also he's a creature of the bureaucracy. And that is, in many ways, the strength of the Empire. The only way that you can rule an empire, a galactic empire, is with a strong bureaucracy run with rules, regulations, and laws that are all enforced and followed. you become a fascist dictator by manipulating that bureaucracy to serve your needs. Unlike what we have right now, which is anti-bureaucratic, and substitute that with a loyalty brigade, which is by its effect going to make mistakes and stupid ones because they don't have the experience or knowledge. They shun away from specialty, whereas the bureaucracy uses scientific knowledge and specialty towards its own ends. That's why this is a big, scary system, but it does function, and Cyril is a result of that. And within that, he flourishes. And the love that he didn't get from his mom, he obviously focuses on Dedra. Yeah. Dedra, thank you. I was like, that's not hitting my brain right. And I love the fact that they end up seeming to have a healthy relationship, or loving one, or appreciative one. One certainly where she cares enough about him to put his mom in place, though it's also an area where she has control, and mom has to deal with the consequences of her actions here. But I've always appreciated that kind of system. That's why it's like, I would love to see this imperial bureaucracy, the show, and just how all of this stuff is done and handled, because I think that would be fascinating. I hope to see more.
Agents of the Empire.
Yeah. Well, and within that, we do talk about, for anyone else, Gorman Gorham will become much more important going forward. So that's the reasons why they're laying these particular groundworks down. I'm not really going to say anything more, but there are reasons why we've been talking about it and why the Empire is focused so much on it. Okay, so let's wrap things up with our Ferrix gang that's now on the Harvest Planet. And again, thank you, Tony Gilroy, for putting stormtroopers in a new environment that's not sand. If I never see a sand planet again, it will be too soon, is all I'm going to say with that. This was great. I love the look of stormtroopers and Imperials in different landscapes and stuff. It just always gives the very creepy feel to it. It's so effective because that armor just conveys so much just within its view. I love the fact that we get to see this. And again, kind of like what we had with Ferrix, we have the encroachment on the Empire of further and further parts. I think they even say this is Outer Rim. It's like it's reaching further, it's grabbing more, it's imposing itself more. We have a government who's sending troops around asking for random people for their citizenship papers, which I guess is a thing that all of us have to carry anymore. Hold on. Yeah, I've got mine right here. Anyway.
Papers?
Sorry.
Papers? Your papers, please.
Your papers, please. I think I put a statement out. I was like, yeah, this is reminding me of the old movies I used to watch growing up, the post-World War II, Cold War eras. Yeah, the people that said that were never the good guys. Yep. They were never the good guys.
Never.
But we are seeing consequences again of last season here, specifically with Bix, who was dealing with serious PTSD from her Imperial torture with the fucking sound things. My God, the fact that she's even as functional as she is, honestly, I'm kind of impressed about. But this is, again, we have a group waiting for Andor to return as the Imperials start their inspections. And what are you going to do about it? Can you run? Will you lose Andor? Will he be able to find? He is the back. Again, you have that central pillar and the effects of them being gone. And now we have the Imperials coming in, a situation out of their control. And how do they deal and adjust? I love Brasso being there. B, obviously, so glad that he's still around. I love that little droid. I can't remember the kid's name. I know he was the one whose dad was killed on Bix Road last season. I'm glad he's with him, but I guess he's in love with a girl, and like all youth, makes really poor choices of when you want to visit people and do things. I mean, I guess the big question here that everybody is talking about is the sexual assault scene on Bix from the Imperial officer, which, yes, is a big thing to happen in Star Wars. Usually don't see this grounded stuff, but we're also usually dealing with space wizards. So, you don't generally have to deal with these types of things. I think it is important. One, Bix is already dealing with PTSD from her exposure to the Empire, and this is what invading forces do. They rape the population for intimidation and fear and control. It's just a natural occurrence of what happens when you put assholes. With this person, you can see obviously a nebbish Gork. And this is the only way that he's really going to get action, is because of his power, whether somebody is swooned by it or whether he imposes it over another. We don't get a full sexual assault. We get the beginnings of one, and that is fought off a beautiful way. And I'm glad that this guy got the crap beaten out of him. And the way he eventually dies, just collapsing and slamming his head on that table, was freaking great. I'm glad he's dead. The actor did a great job of making me hate him. But I think that this is important stuff to see, of the seriousness that this show is showing of this type of enemy.
The person emboldened by their political party to do whatever they want to whoever they want, depending on the circumstances. Would he have done that if somebody else was there, right directly there? Probably not. But it just reminds me every day, and I of women every single day that have to worry about this kind of thing, about being alone with the wrong kind of person. I hear this kind of story every day at my job. Of regular ass people going too far with people at my job that are just there to do a job, and a customer comes in and they think that they can just do whatever. And these are just regular ass assholes. Now give them power.
Right.
And this is what happens. And it's disgusting. But on a lighter, and poor Bix, she is, by the end of this, I mean, I don't know, I don't even know, but I wanted to bring up that how much of this location reminded me of Ezra Bridger's home planet on Rebels.
Oh
Very
yeah,
all
Lethal.
farming, wide open
Yeah.
fields, the skiffs that the stormtroopers take across the thing, the whole wide open, moisture farms and all that stuff, like without sand dunes. It really made me feel like we were in kind of Rebels territory. I also kind of feel like this. How much more can they do? Like, because Brasso's gone, which I really didn't like.
Oh, I know.
When I saw him there, I was like, oh, he got tagged and he's done. But and the kid, he was the one who threw the bomb.
Yeah.
At the end of the first season, but I don't know what else they can do with the Ferrix gang at this point. He's no good for her.
Mm-hmm.
He can't be there for her like he needs to be. That was a big part of this whole thing. It was just like that kind of that tension building of like Andor not being there again. The robot sitting there. I'm waiting for Andor, who never shows because he is so committed. And that's important to the story, I think, to show that he, no matter what, he can't go back again. Like Marva said, like he's full of this thing. And once it takes over, he's going to be an unstoppable force for good. But he needs to be able to, he has to cut ties to all the people that he's going to hurt along the way.
Yeah, I agree.
So Bix, the kid, they need to find somewhere else to go because he can't as much as he wants to stay connected to his past, he's got to let it go. We know where he's headed, story wise.
Right.
They're not in it. They're not in that picture. Or maybe they're, who knows? Maybe they are. I don't know. But it
Well,
would be
no,
real.
you definitely get the feel that he is the one fully committed to the rebellion, and in order to do that, he can have no ties.
Yeah.
He can't have
Also,
anyone that can come after him, anyone that can be used against him, or anyone that's going to be hurt because of something that happens to him. So yeah, I think by next set of episodes, we may see that result of the final loss, because I completely agree with you. They're no good together.
Yeah.
For what needs to happen.
Leela with metal neck collar and bikini.
Leia, yeah, in
Leia.
Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Exactly. First thing, oh, cute girl. Let's. Yeah.
But another. Well, first, did they take the robot with? Because
B went with Brasso's girlfriend up into the hills. She has the chargers. Like, don't worry, she has the charger and she's going to look after you, and we'll swoop back, because they were planning to go to 800 to do that repair and try and avoid the Imperials. And so they were leaving B here, because I think that's where Andor would come back to when he does, is that location. So I think that's why. Yeah. See what happens
still
in a
waiting
year
for
from now.
Andor. Still can't get him to show up and say hi. I also really liked Brasso yelling at the guy who says, "You sold us out," knowing he's saving this guy's life.
Yeah. The little look they got for that one moment of little recognition. Fucking yeah.
And that's how that's how a hero goes, though. Heroes die. People are afraid to be heroes because heroes die.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't, blow up the Death Star. He just saved one man who had been helping them. Otherwise, another body down, another needless death, because we were there. We caused this. We put him in this position. And I love that self-sacrifice, and that's what happens to these kind of characters is.
And I just have to say, Brasso's speeder, the camera work with that, how he got over on, and then the cameras affixed to the speeder. Oh my God, that looked so good. That looked so right. Again, and it wasn't a shift to a, CGI thing going off in the background or a plate. The way that they did that, and they managed to do it both times that he jumped on his bike and went. They kept it shorter for the second one. But that was a really awesome choice to shoot that, and gave us a great look that kept the reality, that constant reality in, without a quick switch to a matte painting or a zoom or some kind of crazy camera trick that they have to do. They just kept the camera fixed to the thing. Anyway, simple but beautiful camera choice.
Yeah.
Yeah, poor Brasso. That's in my notes. Anyway, but yeah, so I think that wraps up. I love Andor coming back and picking him up, and the shots from the space, and we have seen, even in this short amount of time, how proficient Andor has become with this ship. This thing with this strange, unknown kind of, backwards flight system. And he is just flying and shooting and drifting that thing all around at the end. It's a great way to show his competency in it, what you could do with the shots. And again, just a nice little evolution bit. But yeah, I think by next chunk of episodes, by next week, we're probably going to end up saying goodbye to Bix. If not, maybe it's certainly by the third week, because I think that you're right. I think this whole group has to be gone in order for Andor to commit to the kind of missions that are going to be necessary to make this rebellion work.
Yep.
Anyway, any other little last thoughts or things before we wrap stuff up here?
I was scrambling in my head, and I'm like, I think we pretty much got it all.
I did want to throw out here, for those of you that might have, I don't know, a visceral need to perhaps see Nazis get their just desserts in an over-the-top and satisfying manner. There is a film series called Becky that came out, I think, in 2020, and its follow-up, Wrath of Becky, in 2023. It's on Paramount Plus right now. It is a low-budget slasher. Little 13-year-old girl gets her revenge against Nazis for killing her dad. And it is just awesome. I had a great time. My wife and I, Kevin James is the evil Nazi in the first one. In an unrecognizable role, I watched the movie, looked up the credits, saw his name, and was like, no, it wasn't. I'm looking at his face. I'm like, no, that guy wasn't in that movie. And then I rewatched some of the bits. And I was like, oh, okay. Great performance. Sean William Scott is in the sequel playing another just very charismatic dirtbag. And there is not a drop of American Pie feel to him. He does an amazing job. So the performances are good. The direction is above competent. It gives a great low budget feel with some interesting choices that just keep the whole thing fun. And the girl who plays the lead is just freaking magnificent. So if you feel the need to see either a neo-Nazis or super patriots get their just desserts, I recommend Becky and Wrath of Becky, which you can watch right now on Paramount Plus.
Well, then I would always say you can't go wrong with some baseball bats to the head in Inglorious Bastards.
Very true. Very true.
And that underseen, I think I love this movie so much. I bought the poster. You know me. If I get that itch and I get the poster, I frame the poster. I tell everybody about it, and that's that little movie with Ian Carstecker and Wyatt Russell called Overlord.
Oh, nice.
Where they go under, it's them going behind before D-Day and running into like a Resident Evil's Nazi castle that's got the guy that played that was in Game of Thrones and what the one who kills Jamie Lannister. Oh, spoilers! What's his name? The salt guy. I don't know. I can't remember his name, but like there's a lot of Nazis getting killed in that one too. If you like to see that kind of thing.
Nice. And of course, you can always check out Green Room. A little more of a serious one, but Nazis do get their just desserts. A great performance from Patrick Stewart as an evil Nazi, which is not to be missed. And there's a great review of that movie and a whole trilogy of the directors that you can catch right over on Smirking Gun Reviews.
Yeah, I mean, The Man in the High Castle. Eventually, sometimes Nazis die in that one, but if you really want to fight Nazis, watch The Man in the High Castle. That'll make you want to fight Nazis.
There you go. So a sequence of films if you need a little bit of a visceral release going forward. So that's going to wrap us up for this week. Be sure to check out everything over on Smirking Gun Reviews. And then we'll be back next week. Same Andor time, same Andor station for the next trilogy of episodes, which will be covering third year BBY. So we'll find out what those stories are going to be. Until then, so long, take care, and as always, watch out for those Nazis.
Yep.